Hey guys, welcome to the mentorship program. Oh, are we here? Okay. Hey everybody, welcome to the mentorship program. Today I'm excited to be here with Donnie Summers. Donnie is a graduate of the EFT Certification course that many of you are going through. And he has really done something that I think is exciting, is that he has started using EFT or started getting clients with EFT by doing live workshops. And through those live workshops, he has now managed to get so many clients that his schedule is full, and he's had to go onto his website and put up a little notice that people can get on the waiting list. But I love this story, and I wanted to start by just asking a little bit about, before we get into what you're doing and how you're doing it, but how you came to EFT in the first place.
Well, I've had a lot of severe trauma in my life since childhood, and ranging the gamut of all kinds of different things. And honestly, I just started kicking over a lot of rocks, trying to find something that would give me more peace and more satisfaction and control in my life, and to let go of some of these old stories of things that are holding me back.
And do you feel like you've got that now?
I've gotten a lot better at that. I definitely am still doing my work. I do a lot of weekly work, and there are a lot of things I combine in the things that I do.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I've improved quite a bit, especially the past year and a half, 2 years.
Because before this, if I remember when you contacted me about signing up for the class, you were really struggling with, you actually had a diagnosis of mental illness at that point from anxiety, correct?
Yeah, I was diagnosed with PTSD, Asperger's syndrome, and living off of Social Security disability, and trying to live off a little bit less than $700 a month.
Right.
Which is really difficult.
So, you know what? I don't think it's picking up my audio. Hello, hello. Oh, there.
I can hear you.
You can hear me. Okay.
Yeah.
So, all right. So the whole goal for you really mostly was healing yourself. That was way before going out there and opening an office to help other people, I'm guessing.
Well, I've been into a lot of different modalities since 2012, and so since 2012, I've been helping a lot of people. I just wasn't using EFT. There was a lot of other things I was using.
And did any of them help you in the same degree as EFT or close to EFT?
In some ways, but they didn't really give me a lot of clarity. So, I jumped into a lot of Native American healing type of ceremonies.
Okay.
And a lot of them are very difficult, where you would release a lot of different traumas and emotions, but sometimes you didn't even really know what you were releasing, what was going on. And sometimes you could be repeating those same patterns because there wasn't a clarity of like, oh, and not always, but there wasn't always a clarity of like, this is why this keeps happening, because I keep choosing this story, and it wasn't getting to a root that gave my conscious mind anything I could go off of as much.
Right.
So.
And do you still struggle with the anxiety to the same degree?
No, not at all. I still have anxiety. It's not like it used to be. I definitely now have a lot of different tools that I use, and I combine with EFT to help me with that.
It's wonderful. I love this story. I still don't think it's hearing my audio because it's not shifting when I talk. Hello, hello. Right. So I have to get all the way up on the microphone for it to shift. So, okay. So I'll just look funny holding the microphone next to my mouth, but so be it. Okay. So fast forward. So you've done the training, and you went through the training really fast, like 3 weeks or something, maybe a month.
Yeah.
Really fast.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you were doing a ton of sessions. Every time I looked, you were on there doing another session with somebody else.
Definitely, yeah.
I was impressed by that. And okay, so let's fast forward. Now you are going out into the world to start getting clients. What happened?
Well, it took me a little bit. I don't know if you recall, but there was times I may have talked to you a little bit about it and Dawn, but when I first decided to get out, I still realized I had a lot of fear of being seen. I'd been on disability, very introverted, very sensitive to
Say,
energy.
say that again, please, because we lost. Can you say that again? Let's start with the question because we had a connection loss.
Okay.
Okay, so you've graduated the class and now you're going out into the world. So what happened?
Well, at first it was very difficult for me. I was excited, but I had been an introvert and at home most of the time that I wasn't used to getting out and socializing um, in a way where I was trying to get more attention, you know? So a lot of fear of being seen
Right.
came up, success, all these things, failing, living a small story. And um, so I did the best that I could at the time, but it wasn't getting me very much. I would get a client here, a client there, but it wasn't anything long lasting. And when they didn't come back, I didn't throw such a big fit over it because I still had a lot of fear about really actually having to practice. Um, and I kept
Right.
doing a lot of inner work. And over a pretty short period of time, I started to work through these issues and realized that I wanted to get out there and have my own practice and more independence. So I
I love it.
went out there at first and I didn't really have any business cards or a website or anything like that. I just was kind of word of
Okay.
mouth and doing workshops and um, still lacking confidence. I didn't even have the confidence to stand when I would present a workshop with people. I would want to go
Wow.
and stand and be a presence, but as soon as I would walk in a room full of people, I almost felt like I was frozen. And I found the first chair I could to sit down just so I could feel like I was on the same level and feel some sort of control. Um, and I wasn't really
Okay.
sure a way around that because as much as I wanted to, I struggled with that. And what helped get me through that was a presentation I did for a place in my hometown that deals with women that have been through domestic violence. I wanted to introduce an EFT and mindfulness program there. And they wanted a
Mhm.
presentation, but they wanted it through, like, they're like, come and bring us a PowerPoint demonstration and do a demonstration of what you do. And I was like, gosh, I don't know how to do a PowerPoint. And so I went and got one of those huge
Mhm.
pads, white pads that you can flip the pages over. And I just did it on that, hoping it would be good enough. Um, and I went in there and it actually felt good because I had to stand to do the presentation, which I noticed gave me confidence right away. And I was like, wow, that's a big thing of how much more power I had in my words. Um, but
Yeah,
after
I love that. I love it. It's great.
Thank you. Afterwards, what I had happen was a woman named Susan came up to me and she said, "You did a great job on your presentation. Um, you were funny. You were, very knowledgeable about what you did. However, you didn't ask for our business afterwards. You presented it and you said, thank you for your time. If you have any questions, let me know or call me." But she's like, that's not selling. She's like, you left it completely open for us to make a decision on our own without asking for our business. And she's someone that I
I
took
see.
serious because she's been doing presentations all over the world. And so she knows how to sell.
Right.
And she's like, you really need to learn how to sell and ask for the business that you want from people. And that's what sort of
Yep.
changed what
Absolutely.
was going on for me. I had a workshop that I had planned coming up, but to be honest, I was kind of at the end of it where I'm like, none of this has worked out. Um, I feel like I'm kind of done. After this workshop, if I don't get anybody, I quit. I've tried and it's not working. Um,
And the thing is, I think a lot of EFT practitioners get to that place. I think, the marketing part is scary and hard, and that a lot of people have the same kind of fears and worries that you do: fear about being seen, fear about being successful, fear about failure. And
mhm.
so they do one or two or three things and it doesn't work, and then they just walk away. So uh, I think a lot of people are in the same place that you were when you made this critical change.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's been powerful. So, after one moment, when I did the next workshop, it was different because I actually put together a presentation of what I partially done for this organization where I live, and added some things to it that I figured would be great detail so that people could understand more, instead of just, oh, I have these emotions and stories and I can help tap them away. I wanted to give people a bigger understanding of that, of what was going on with their emotional state, their physical state, and what was happening in their biology, in their body. And I found that a lot of people really liked the information of what I was doing and some of the stories I would tell, and then how I would sell it at the end.
Mm-hmm.
So
what happened?
I started getting a lot of clients, and since we talked the other day, I figured out roughly how many people over the past half a dozen workshops that I've done, which has been around 150 people.
Wow, that's so great.
Workshops. Yeah, it is.
I love it.
And
150 clients or 150 sessions?
No, 150 people that showed up to the workshops.
Wow, okay. Okay. So great.
And I have figured out that my selling rate is a little bit less than 1 in 5. So right in between 1 in 4 and 1 in 5 people are signing with me. And something that was really one of the scariest things I had ever said in a workshop, that, because when you're broke and you have no money, to ask somebody for a large amount of money seems like, I can't afford that, so how do I dare ask somebody else who doesn't have the money? Because I assume that they don't have the money either, that they're just as broke as me.
Right.
And something that helped me, there were 2 people that gave me great advice, and it was my friend Lana, who told me in her own practice as an energy healer that when she charged less, because she wanted to keep it affordable for people, that she wasn't getting as many clients. But as soon as she doubled her rate to $150 for a session with her, all of a sudden her business grew.
Yep.
And it was like, people, when they see that it costs more, they think they're getting more value out of it because it costs more. And the next one was, I went to an EFT workshop, and this was long before I considered becoming certified. I had been practicing EFT for probably 6 months, using it every day. And I was so impressed with this woman's workshop that afterwards I went up to her and I said, thanks for the presentation. I was really impressed. How much do you charge for a session? I would love to do a session with you. And she goes, I don't do them by the session when I first work with people. When people first come work with me, it's $500 and you get 5 sessions. And she says that it wouldn't be doing you any justice for you to come to do 1 session of EFT and then for you to just go back about your life. You really need to have several sessions of it to really see the benefits and understand it and be able to use it in a practical way on your own at home.
And that's solid advice. It's so solid that, because so often people come in, they do 1 session, maybe you spend the first half hour talking, you do 15, 20 minutes of tapping, they walk out and they go, oh, that was interesting, but, and then they never come back.
Yeah, exactly.
If you have somebody come in who's committed to actually getting better, and they've committed to the process, and they get time with you to actually build a relationship with you, to build a relationship with the issue and start digging around within it, it's in terms of the quality of the client that you're going to get, it goes through the roof. And in terms of the quality of the results that you're going to get with your client, it goes through the roof. And that's powerful stuff. But it does take bravery to sit there and go, okay, $500 or you can't come in the door for me. I love it.
Yeah. Well, what she said afterward was even more powerful too. Is I said, wow, that's really expensive. And she goes, you can't look at it as an expense. An expense is something that's thrown away that you don't get anything out of. She goes, you have to look at this as an investment in yourself, in your own well-being, for all the dreams that you want to come true that you're not living now. That this is an investment. You can't look at it like that. And that hit me, and I was like, wow, like that was very powerful for her to be that brave, knowing she could probably get, people for one session all day long, which is probably not, it's not too difficult for people to do that. But to commit to something like 5 sessions, and I didn't have enough bravery to do that, but what I did is I said, I have a 3-pack. I do 3 sessions. That's minimum what I do. And the people that do it, I also make sure that I give them 90 days. I tell them that they have to use these sessions within 90 days. And there's several reasons that I do that.
Wow.
One is I don't want over a year's time of all the people that are going to come see me. I don't want, when my schedule is really busy, for 50 or 100 people to show up and say, hey, remember that voucher I had a year ago?
Right.
I really want to cash this in, which then doubles or triples my schedule and overwhelms me.
Right.
Number 2, I let them know that the reason I have this 90-day period is because it doesn't do them any good to do a session and then come 6 months later and then come 3 or 6 months later. That really see the benefit. They have to have this, really to have these 3 in the first 90 days.
Yep. True.
That's how it works. And they're not
better if they can do 3 in the first week, just set it up a 1 week, 2 week, 3 weeks or whatever. But the closer they can do it together, they're going to have the power of seeing the result. So, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And, something that helped me too is I wanted to figure out, because I've also been someone who's done the client chasing, where you have the session. I didn't really know how to close them on bringing in to a new session. So it was like, my way would be checking on them 2 or 3 days after their session. Hey, how you feeling? You notice any changes? What's new? Excuse me. And, there's always the people, hey, well, when would you like to reschedule? And then, oh, well, let me get back to you. I've got to check my schedule and yada, yada. And then you may or may not hear from them, and you don't want to blow them up and annoy them. So, a new thing that I've been doing is that when I get someone who's either used the 3, and after the 3, they can just do 1 session at a time. But every time someone comes and sees me now, and I have a pretty good success with this, is when someone's done with a session, let's take, for example, if someone, say, every Tuesday they've been coming to see me for every Tuesday, every other Tuesday. At the end of the session, I'll say something like, well, it seems like Tuesday's been working for you, Deborah. So, what are 3 times on the following Tuesday that work for you? Instead of, hey, would you like to schedule, and give them the choice, I say, what are 3 times that work for you next Tuesday? And I'll see if that works in my schedule.
Right. And they still have the right to say yes or no, but instead you're guiding them instead of, because the question isn't yes or no, the question is when. Yeah.
And so then what I've been doing is, to make sure I get payment, is that I'll ask them right then, is I'll say, hey, since you've got your phone here, let's just go ahead and get on PayPal, take care of the session now, and then I can confirm the appointment for you right now. Because I don't want to chase people around, and I don't want to have to worry that the day of that they're going to come. So I let people know now. I don't take cash. I go all through PayPal. And that doesn't mean
what happens, and if they don't show up, you just no rescheduling, or what's your rescheduling policy?
Well, I have it on my site, but what I do is they have to give me a 24-hour notice. I also let people know that, look, if there really is an emergency and there was something where they really couldn't make it, a family emergency, or they're sick or whatever, that I'm willing to reschedule. But if somebody can't give me the time and just say, oh, I forgot about my appointment and I can't make it 20 minutes before, well, then they're going to have to pay for another session.
Right.
And they may not like it. But the fact is when I don't get that session, I could have booked somebody else.
Right.
So,
and when you have a full schedule, it's much easier to feel that and recognize it.
Yeah.
For someone who's got 2 appointments a week or 3 appointments a week, you're desperate for that session. But when you've got a full appointment schedule like that, it really builds a confidence in, and not just a confidence, but a real honest to goodness recognition that, hey, my schedule would have been full. So you cost me money, and that's not fair. Right. I get it.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I find that the more that I'm communicative about my policies with people, then there's less room for error and people getting upset later, instead of saying, oh, well, if you didn't read the disclaimer on my website, which who reads those? Not very many people. I know I don't.
Right.
it causes less distress. So I just let people know straight up what's going on. And something I noticed, and maybe this will help other practitioners out there, but when I first started getting busy, I worked because I'm so used to having no money and just being desperate now, where I was like, oh my God, all this money's coming in, that I didn't take any time for myself. Anytime anybody wanted to schedule, I scheduled, and I was doing way too many sessions, and I was burning myself out to a point where I was almost like, this isn't even worth it either. I wanted clients. Now I'm getting them. Now I don't want them. And I had to find this balance, and I still am, where I still want to do less than what I'm doing now, and figure out what days I want to work, what times I want to work, and how many people that I want to work with a day, and give myself at least 2 days off a week so that I can rest and do my own healing regimen to bring myself back to balance. So,
and you know, it is so important because as healers, I don't know about you, but certainly for me, I feel this responsibility that I have to heal the whole world. So if people show up and they're really not well and they need help and they're standing right in front of me, I have very little capacity to say no. So to have that time set up and go, okay. And I also know that in my own practice, my God, I used to get so burned out. Like I would go home at night and I would just get in my bathtub and pour in some sea salt and try to clean myself off from both the energies and the, you know, and all the problems that people had put in front of me that day. You know, for me, I always have to think them through. Like they don't walk out the door and then I forget them 10 minutes later. At the end of the day, I carry all that stuff home with me, at least for a little while. And then I've got to shuffle it all off, and I go in tomorrow, and then I've got more people who are coming at me, and it would just wear me down. So I love the idea of just setting your hours and being strong about it, and that's it. Like, it's great.
Yeah.
It's good. Okay, so you've set strong hours or clear hours, or you're going to. So you're taking what, 15, 20, 25 clients a week? What are you doing?
Right now I've been working between 10 to 15 people a week, and I could be doing more. To be perfectly honest with you, if I could do, for me, as you know, I'm not trying to be a millionaire. If I could do 10 a week and keep it at 10 a week and do 40 a month, I would be completely happy with that.
Right. And you're doing 100 an hour?
I charge 100 an hour. Yeah.
Right. It's a fair price all day long. So I'm always amazed, actually, by the fact that EFT practitioners are bringing home $100, $150 an hour pretty consistently. I know of at least one graduate is charging $300 an hour. And she's pulling in, you know, she's pulling in at least 10 times. She said she was averaging 11 sessions a week at $300 an hour. Now, she does a lot of really advanced marketing and stuff. You know, so a lot of her time and energy is caught up in marketing, and she has niches. You know, she's got a very strong niche, and she has an online practice. So, you know, there are people out there who in EFT are making, you know, $3,000 a week doing this work, and that's not pretend, and that's not fantasy. That's real income that people are making doing EFT. So, for you to go from being on disability making $700 a month to making $1,500 a week, that's wonderful. What a great success story that is.
Yeah.
And you know, even if you cut that down to 100, you know, to 10 sessions a week, you can probably raise your prices to $150 an hour and still be making the same money working fewer hours. So, but that's a choice you make, and it's a step that comes in the process as you know, as you go along.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so let's talk about the workshops themselves. So you started out by getting workshops, and that was your main marketing strategy.
Yes.
Now, you're not doing many workshops now because you don't want to bring in more clients at present. Is that right?
At the moment, yeah. I just canceled a workshop I was going to do on the 21st, but I will later. I want to see how this is all going to filter out because I'm getting a lot of referrals from people I'm working with.
Right.
So,
and you're in a big city, a small town. Where are you?
I'm in a pretty small town. There's 3 small towns that are within a few miles of each other, but they're all very much interconnected.
Okay. So, but you're not in New York City, right? Like you're
No.
in real honest to goodness, small town USA doing this, right?
Yeah, if I combined all three towns together, there's maybe, and this might be a higher figure, but maybe 20,000 people between all three towns.
Right. That's amazing. Like you should be so proud of yourself, Donnie. I'm
Thanks.
proud of you. I love it. So, okay, so let's talk about how you started to get those workshops. Step one, you decide you want to do a workshop. What do you do?
Well, basically, I find the places that I can do workshops at.
For
Which,
example,
you know, any place from public libraries to yoga studios, YMCA. There's hotels that will book out rooms that you can rent for the hour. There's different places around my valley, at least, that I can
okay.
set up workshops. So it's really kind of endless, using your imagination.
And how do you market those websites? Like, what's your title? Come Learn EFT, or are you doing what's your title for your workshops?
It's usually just EFT, emotional freedom techniques, and then I have a little spiel about a little bit about what EFT is and how it can help reduce physical pain, emotional distress, and things like that. And
But I mean, in terms of your marketing, like you put out a poster. How do you get the people in the workshop? So you set up a workshop at your local yoga studio, for example. Now that makes sense to me because they probably have a clientele built in.
right.
And so they market it to their audience, correct?
Right.
And,
So I've,
yeah. So
go
what do
ahead.
you call your workshop?
It's just an EFT workshop, emotional freedom technique workshop.
Okay, straight up.
Just,
No, nothing fancy.
no
No.
guru, just plain old EFT emotional freedom technique workshop, and then a little paragraph in a flyer about what it is. And what I do is I find places that have their own marketing. So a lot of places will have their own Facebook and Instagram and all the different things online where they will post these things.
Right.
Their website, and then usually in studio, wherever this place is, we'll have a bulletin board where I can hang up things. And then I know all the spots in town now where I can go hang up a flyer for EFT. I let any of my network of people that I know here, friends, things like that, know I'm doing a workshop, ask if they'll let their friends and family know that it's happening. And then I also will email other people that have been to other workshops and let them know, hey, welcome back to another workshop I'm doing. Bring any friends or family, XYZ. So.
And the thing I love about this is that it's so old school. Like this is like hands-on. We're hanging up flyers in town. We're calling friends, doing referrals. Like this is really old school, main street marketing as compared to all the fancy dancy stuff that people think you need to do nowadays on the internet. Now, do you have a Facebook, do you do Facebook and Instagram and all that stuff at this point, or
I don't.
No.
I don't. If you were on my Facebook page, you wouldn't see a single thing about EFT. You'd see a lot of funny memes and art pictures I draw, and I keep that whole part private from what I do. And
I love it. And do you have you rent an office? What do you do about your location?
I try to do most of my sessions through Skype, which is on my website. And there are people, because there is one specific place I go to that's it's for senior citizens that I do workshops, and they love it there. They request me every single month to come.
Nice.
I lost my point here.
So where you do your locations? The location for your sessions.
Oh yeah, that's what I was going to say. So a lot of senior citizens, for example, when you mention Skype, they don't know what it is. They don't understand how to get on a phone and talk. It's a foreign concept. So, so I will do a session right out of my home. If there's someone who's like, Skype, I don't know what that is, or do we have to do Skype, or I can't do that, I'll just have someone come to my home.
Right.
So,
and you don't even have a laptop, right? You work off of your phone.
I'm working off of my phone. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, that's something really spectacular too, that people think you need this high dollar technology. Did you take the class on the phone?
I did, yeah.
That's amazing, right? Like nowadays, you don't even have to have a laptop to take the class. You don't even have to have a laptop to see clients. You just have to have a phone. Like, that's great. I love it.
Yeah. That's about to change. I'm about to get a laptop finally, actually.
Good.
So
You're moving up in the world, Donnie.
I know I'm moving up. I'm going to have a big laptop now. It's going to be great.
Moving on up.
Yeah.
Okay, so you get these places and you do these workshops. Now, you charging for those workshops, or are they free?
I wasn't, but now I am.
Okay.
Yeah. Now I charge $20 a head for a workshop.
Is that true at the senior center as well?
No, senior place I don't. That's just something I like to do to volunteer to help out in the community, is just do
Right.
EFT there.
I love it. And the seniors need to help so much. And, you know, seniors and kids, like, you just really got to help them. I love it. Okay. So now let's talk about the workshops themselves. You want to give us some, give us some in-depth information about how the people who are watching this can take this information and turn it into the same sort of success story for themselves.
Okay, so I'll get into the chart in a minute, but one of the first things I do is I only do 1 hour workshops, and I keep them extremely structured so that I don't have to worry about something, basically just so I have control of how the workshop's going to go. So when I first go in, I take literally 2 to 3 minutes to introduce myself of who I am, and I'll introduce myself and say I'm a local EFT, emotional freedom techniques practitioner, and that I'm also a certified mindfulness instructor, and that I'm.
So you get your certification at onlineeftcertification.com.
Do I say that? No, I haven't. But I haven't
add that to your presentation so you can get some affiliate marketing money on top of it.
Well, if people do, that's not a horrible idea. If they do, I will definitely recommend you, Deborah. And then I let people know that I'm a somatic sensory integration practitioner. And so right away, when I introduce myself and tell them these things I'm doing, I let them know that 2 out of the 3 things that I do, I wish I had time to go into this, because the combination of these 3 modalities together are absolutely amazing. So right away, I'm giving people the picture that I can give them something, but you're only going to get to see a little bit of what I have to give you today, and to get the rest, you're going to have to come and see me. Right. So I leave part of it a mystery.
Right. Putting some carrots out there. Putting some carrots.
Yeah. I also let them know I make a lot of clear distinctions between what I'm going to be showing them with EFT that day, which is just called a general recipe, and how it is completely different than a clinical application. Mm-hmm. And I go into just a touch about what the clinical or how there are a lot more tools and resources and strategies that we use with the clinical application. And that's also something I'm not going to be able to have enough time or is appropriate in a group to do.
Right. So I love that. You just show them the basic recipe. They've got enough to see that it works. And then if they want more, they got to come. So those kind of carrots are really valuable. And it's not a 2-hour or 3-hour exhaustive workshop where you need to heal everybody before they can walk out the door just to prove that EFT works. Like, there's a certain confidence to the fact that it's 1 hour. I'm going to show you this basic recipe. It's not the clinical application that you would get if you come to see me, but you're going to get some idea of what it is. And so the thing that does is it changes it in some way from being a healing workshop into being a demonstration of your skills workshop. You see the difference? Because if people are coming in there expecting to be healed for their $20 in their 1 hour, they're going to be disappointed, because what has happened instead is it's now a demonstration of your skills. And by shifting the focus from and this is a mistake that I make all the time, because when I do workshops, I'm always focused on making sure that people walk out the door, they feel healed, right? Like something has shifted. And so often that's difficult to accomplish in a group environment. It's difficult to accomplish in a 1 hour environment. And so it's really dangerous, right? Because people come in and they think they're going to get healed. And if they didn't get healed, well, then this doesn't work. And then maybe you felt some change, but the lady over there didn't feel some change. And now everybody's skeptical about whether it works, right?
Right.
But what you're doing is you're shifting it from that healing workshop into a demonstration of my abilities workshop, or to here's what you get if you come to see me workshop. And it shifts it into a sales thing. And the whole idea is to entice them into seeing you, as compared to, we're going to take care of your anxiety right now. You see the difference?
Right.
And that's a really strong difference in the terms of how you're presenting it from a marketing perspective.
Right. Well, you know, after I'll tell you after I show you kind of the demo of a little bit about what I do. There's a way that I target the audience specifically when I use EFT, which I'll get into in a little bit. But after I do this super quick introduction of who I am, I play the introduction to EFT by Gary Craig that's 7 minutes long. And I feel that that's important for people to see. It has a ton of great information, and for 7 minutes to give people that much information, and then that saves me time from having to go into a lot of information about the meridians and all this different stuff that I just don't have to go into. I let a video do it, and then I go right into other aspects that I want to go in deeper with, so that they can understand EFT and the body's biology and what's happening and why they need EFT.
And the nice thing about that video is that it brings credibility from minute one, because it is, it's so nicely produced. And also it has all of the success stories in there. So if you're walking in there and you're talking about your success stories, they're always just a little bit suspect. But if you can, because, let me tell you about this person that got well. Let me tell you about that person that got well. And you want to put that in there. You want to tell your own stories, but to have someone else's stories right there in front of them, and the person saying, this was my story, and I had this amazing healing that came about as a result of EFT, that kind of is social proof, is powerful stuff, very powerful. So that's a nice, I think it's a really great way to start out with, here's a little bit about me, and then go into the video from Gary Craig showing social proof, showing it's a professional thing that's known by other people. It's not something you made up. And then you go into what?
Okay, so let me kind of go into that now. Let me switch this around. Okay. So hopefully you're going to be able to see this on my phone. But
again, another nice old school kind of prompt. And the thing that I love about it is that so often people will make up these really fancy PowerPoint presentations when there's something so real and tactile and honest about having that big, paper pad in front of you with your own handwriting, and there's something about that that's very authentic. I love it.
Definitely. So it might be hard to see from this, but basically I've drawn this huge dartboard, and I'll kind of go in on it a little bit. I don't know how well you can pick this up over there on your screen. Can you see that okay?
Oh, we can see it. So fear, helplessness, I'm not lovable, new belief, reimprint a new belief, I'm a failure, right, worry, I can't. Nice. Yeah,
so this is the EFT dartboard. And so basically what I do when I first explain to people is I start letting them know that what we're doing is the basic general recipe. And I always love to quote Yoda from Star Wars. A great quote he says is, named your fear must be, before banish it you can.
Oh,
and
nice.
So we have to bring into the light what it is that we're hiding from ourselves, what we're afraid to speak out loud. And this is the whole idea behind EFT. And we're not trying to jump right to the middle of the bullseye right away, right? This isn't about some super fast core exposure therapy where you're having to relive your nightmares in 2 seconds. That EFT is gentle, and that we start out with these superficial layers.
Right.
And so I like to explain to people right away so that people don't get expectations going, like you said, that they're going to come and get, because by the time I finish this presentation, I'm at 30 minutes in between the video, my introduction, and what I'm doing here. I have then actually 25 minutes left, typically around there, to do EFT with a whole group of people to sell them with this, okay?
Right. So it's not a
So,
lot of time, right?
right, so I let people know right away, this is just the general recipe, right? And that this is not the clinical application. It's not something I can show them today, that the general recipe is more for these superficial layers. So for those of you that have fear and stress, physical pain, anxiety, worry, ailments, all these things, this is what the general recipe is used for. And we use the general recipe to start dissolving these outer layers to get down to basically the core issue, the belief, the story, the event, or the trauma, so that we can re-imprint a new belief structure for them. And that the clinical application is where we use specific questions, left and right brain stimulation, other points, and a lot of other things.
The thing that I like about this is that it has all of these different problems, for lack of a better word, right there on it. So anybody who's experiencing anxiety or fear or hopelessness or physical pain, they already see themselves in that chart. They go, oh, yeah, I've got that. Oh, yeah, I've got that. Oh, I have a way to get over that. And so it relates to them directly. In just a moment, they can see themselves in there. And also,
Right.
you do a really nice job of keeping it really applicable to people. So they recognize themselves in that right away. And I love how you've built it up from something that's very broad, and then we're going to break it down in. So in the workshop, there's no expectations that you're getting into their core issue. There's no expectation of that. It just shows you, hey, this can do that for you, and I am the conduit of that change. And so that draws them right into your workshop, because if they can relate to any one of these issues, and they all can, because all humans are experiencing these things, it just brings them right to you, because they really do have 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 or 10 of these things on here, and they see themselves in it. And you are now the solution to those things. Great.
Right. And, you know, something I like to do too, is that I like to let the people know, just like you said, is that what we're going to do in this short period of time is not going to be the cure-all, because this is all superficial stuff that we're going to be working on today.
Right.
So I'll usually try to give an example where I might say, like, let's say you're here because you're feeling anxiety. And if we tap on anxiety, we have this 0 to 10 scale that we use that I explain real quick to them, the SUD scale. They start out at an 8, and after we do a few rounds of tapping, and I have them check back in, they say, nope, I'm still at an 8, right? This is where I like to explain in the chart that you may have this anxiety, but tapping on maybe the anxiety by itself may not be enough to make you release that anxiety. Under the anxiety might be a feeling from whatever story that you're holding on to of helplessness, where we tap on the helplessness, that might lower the intensity, or it might not. And then under helplessness, there might be, I'm not good enough, I have no value, no worth, I'm not lovable, I can't, whatever their issue is. The deeper we get under these layers, the more, you know, the scale, that basically they'll lower on the scale.
Right.
And so I set them up right away and let them know, hey, if we're tapping on anxiety and you notice that you haven't dropped down, don't think, oh, this EFT stuff doesn't work for me. We just haven't gotten to your issue, your story, whatever it is that's underneath that layer of anxiety, where you can let that go.
Right.
Right.
And it also nicely demonstrates how they would need 2 or 3 sessions. So when you set up at the end and you say, okay, you're going to need 3 sessions, they can see why. Because you might tap on anxiety the first time and helplessness the second time, and I'm not lovable the third time. So they can already see where they're going to have to work through multiple layers, and they already understand the concept of layers and the concept of of aspects without ever having to talk about layers or aspects. They see it. It's right there. It's visual.
Right.
And they can see.
Are you still there? It looks like it froze up. Okay, you still there?
What's that? Are you back? Yeah, I'm
Yeah, it
back.
froze up
I'm
for a
here.
second. Okay. Something else that I like to do, once I've kind of explained things, because I get into the meaning that we're giving emotions. That's something I talk about just for a few minutes, where if they're feeling fear, anxiety, or hopeless or whatnot, that there's a meaning that they're giving that. If I feel hopeless, what does that mean to me? I'm hopeless because I can't solve this problem. Okay, if you feel hopeless and you can't solve this problem, what does that mean to you? Does that mean that, oh, I'm just not good enough then? Or I'm a failure or whatnot? And that then helps them see like, oh, okay, so I can see how it's not just the anxiety underneath, again, is helpless. I gave that the feeling, I gave it the meaning that I'm a failure or that I have no worth because I can't solve this problem. People then start understanding the superficial layers a little bit more before we even get into tapping. I feel like
Yep.
it really educates them on that.
Yeah, I think so too. It's nicely done.
That and teaching them where it's at in the body. That's something else I also go over for a few minutes is finding out when they say, oh, I have this anxiety. Well, where do you feel that in the body? Oh, I feel it in my neck. And what's the sensation in the neck? If you were to describe the sensation, is it a burning sensation, a stabbing sensation? They may say a gripping sensation. And then I'll usually accompany that to thought forms. So I might say, okay, so you have this gripping sensation. I'm willing to bet that you have these gripping thoughts about your anxiety too. I'll say, yeah, I do. I can't stop thinking about it. It has a grip on me.
Right.
And so that's another layer by sensation I can bring in. Instead of just I have anxiety, I have this gripping anxiety.
Right.
I have these gripping thoughts. And then
so
that
you're able
helps.
to demonstrate the metaphors that go with it.
Yeah, it helps them then get a little lower in that.
Yeah.
Well, there's a story before I flip the page that I like to tell the group, and I call it Sally and the Hippocampus.
Okay.
And I say, imagine little Sally. She's 6 years old, and she just came up in front of the classroom to read her book report for the whole class that she worked so hard on and she was so excited about. And all the kids laugh at her and they point at her, and Sally becomes unpopular after that. Well, fast forward 40 years from now, where Sally's 46 years old, she's working for a company, has 2 kids, and she's a single mom. She's barely paying her bills, and her boss calls her in the office one day and says, hey, Sally, your reports, they're perfect. They're immaculate. You do so well on the reports. I'd really love you to present this to the committee. And Sally realizes that the last person who got called to present reports to the committee ended up getting a higher position in the corner office and a company vehicle and a raise. And Sally should be excited, but Sally is now a nervous wreck. She gets knots in her stomach. She feels like she's about to have a panic attack and pass out, and she's scared to death. So she goes home and either avoids doing the task or says that she doesn't want to do the task, period, to the boss, or she goes the next day and she completely bombs it and fails it. The boss keeps her in the same position that she's been at for several years, thinking, I guess Sally couldn't handle it. And this is all because of a part of our brain called the hippocampus that has to do with emotions and memory, especially long-term memory. The hippocampus remembers everything that's happened to us in our life, like a supercomputer. And each and every one of us have stories just like Sally that we've been holding on to, and we have hundreds of them. So the hippocampus's job is to be hyper vigilant for any story that looks, any event that might look anything similar to Sally's experience she had when she was 6 years old. And so that's a story I like to share with the group and then ask them, think about how you're like Sally in your own way in your own life, of how you have stories that you've hold on to that is stopping you from living a more abundant life because of something that happened long ago and you may not even remember it.
Yeah.
But the reason why you won't start your own business, the reason why you don't take that higher paying job, or the reason why you're too scared to stop and take a vacation with your family, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So I like to bring this story in at the end of my presentation too, and remind them about this. But this is sort of what I do on the first page, just to kind of get a basic introduction about the general recipe, the superficial layers, and things like that.
And the nice thing about that, people are intrigued by stories, first of all. Secondly, relate to stories. And third, they will take that story and relate it to themselves. So, you almost don't even have to ask the question of, does it relate to anything in your own life? Because people have already done that, So when you ask that question, you're just like, oh, okay, because everybody in there is having that experience. And it's the human experience, is that we've all got these limiting beliefs, these experiences that happened to us in the past that have held us back. And so I can see why you're getting, just watching this, I can see why you're getting a 20 or 25% closing rate from this workshop. It's really nicely done, Donnie. You should be proud.
Oh, thank you. The second page, is it okay if we go on to that one?
Yeah, of course.
This is the kind of final point I go into here, and you may not be able to see all this. Some of this is small writing. But as soon as I turn the page, what I basically do, I'll just kind of scan through this. I don't know if the camera angle's good on this. You can kind of see.
Did you just move your mic somehow?
I may have been covering a little. Is that better?
Yeah, much better. Thank you.
Okay. So I'll kind of get into this stuff, but basically as soon as I flip the page, and I kind of tie these two pages in together, but I'll look at the crowd and I'll say, now how many of you here, and I would be surprised if nobody ever felt like this, either said, I've lost myself, I'm losing my mind, or I don't know who I am anymore. And, usually it gets a good chuckle in the room because everybody relates to it. And I'll say, the truth is, if you've ever said that to yourself, I'm losing my mind, lost myself, or I don't know who I am anymore, it's because you have lost your mind and you have lost yourself and you don't know who you are anymore. But don't worry, there's actually a reason for this, and it's actually temporary. And this is where I get in and I start explaining a little bit about fight, flight, and freeze and what happens in the left side of the brain. And so I talk about an area of the brain called the medial prefrontal cortex, which is right behind the prefrontal cortex, which has to do with, that's the logical, rational side of our brain. But behind the prefrontal cortex, the medial prefrontal cortex is what I refer to as the watchtower, okay? And the watchtower is the me center, right? And so when someone says, oh, I feel like I've lost myself or I've lost my mind, it's because part of their brain has shut down. They've lost this me center here, and they've gone into fight, flight, or freeze. So in a sense, it's a life or death situation they feel that they're in. The same as if, back in the day where a tiger would have jumped out of the brush at one of our ancestors, they would have gone into fight or flight. Cortisol and adrenaline, stress hormones would rush through their body, and they would have to make immediate life or death decisions. But now the common everyday tiger is, the boss wants the report on the desk by 9 a.m. tomorrow. My kid just flunked out of college. My husband thinks I'm fat. My neighbor annoys me. Whatever it is, think about this in your own life.
Right. And
what happens when we go into fight, flight, or freeze is our major systems go offline. And this is actually really important because basically our sympathetic nervous system takes over. And this is a very crucial part of our body that we need, because if we had a tiger jump out of the brush at us, we'd need to run. Mm-hmm. If the left side of the brain stayed active, this me center, the prefrontal cortex stayed active, well, when the tiger jumped out of the bush, we'd say, wait, is that a tiger? Is he about 350 pounds? He looks like he's about 50 feet away. I probably have about 5 seconds before he gets to me. I wonder what I'm going to do. Like, we can't think any of that in a life or death situation. So half the brain shuts down, and it makes things difficult, like self-care, emotional regulation, digestion, sleep, learning, memory, decision-making, detoxification, logic, and on and on. And that's where I like to mention, now, can you imagine what's happening in your body when you're in a consistent state of fight or flight? If you have adrenaline running through your body, how are you going to sleep at night? If you have cortisol pumping through your body, how are you going to have emotional regulation, have self-care, be able to use your memory and have learning. And most importantly, when your digestive system shuts down and your liver and your kidneys to prepare for a life or death situation, your body stops detoxifying. Guess what happens when your body stops detoxifying? And this is going on a daily basis, month after month, year after year. It's basically a breeding ground for disease, for cancer, for everything you can imagine that's going to happen when your systems are not online. And so people don't realize that the threat is over, even if they know. We're all in this story where we're either in the beginning, the middle, or the end of the story. And most of us are in the end of the story, but the body still thinks it's in the middle. It still thinks it's in the life or death scenario, but it's not. So the abusive relationship you left 5 years ago isn't happening anymore. You've come to the end of that story, but the body says, oh, no, I haven't. It's not safe to go out with men. It's not safe to have a boyfriend again. Or I was in that car wreck 2 years ago and it's not safe to get back in a car and drive. Or even though you've turned in the paperwork for the midterm you've done and it's over, your body's still living in fight or flight over it. So you're living in the charge of the sympathetic nervous system, and your body keeps the score of everything. Every one of us has a hippocampus, and every part of that is keeping score of what's going on, which is constantly sending. Were you going to say something?
Well, the thing that I think is so compelling about this is how you made the correlation between just day-to-day life, something as simple as your kid flunking out of school, to the correlation all the way up to I can't sleep, to even getting long-term disease, and even the cancer word. Like, these things relate to your overall health. So, each one of them is now able to make this correlation and go, okay, I have been in this chronic stress state for a really long time and I don't want to get sick. So it's almost a kind of pre-healing. What do they call that when you go to the doctor before you get sick? But it's that kind of thing where they're taking care of themselves before they get sick in order to avoid getting sick. And that's a powerful sales point as well.
Right. I always like to, when I tell people the body keeps the score, I recommend a great book, and I always tell people, look up the book, The Body Keeps the Score, and you will be blown away about your own body. And I say, so what are the benefits of EFT? I said, and then I'll usually say something. I'm like, think of all of these things disappearing. Imagine finding yourself again and bringing your brain, your left and right sides of your brain, back into balance, and having all of these stories, having all of these symptoms that you're dealing with resolve themselves, right? To where you're actually living in a resilient zone again. Neuroscience is teaching us a lot now about neuroplasticity and cortical thickening, how our watchtower can be strengthened. But we've practiced for so long, we've trained our nervous system to be on high alert, to be in fight, flight, or freeze. And that can change. So I'll say, how do we come back online? How do we bring back together both sides of the brain? How do we bring back the watchtower and strengthen it? How do we activate the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the rest and digest part of our nervous system, to strengthen it, reset it, rewire it? So we build new neural pathways. We rewire our mind. We retrain our nervous system. But how? And I'll say the clinical application of EFT.
And at this stage, you've done a really nice job of showing them the benefit in their own lives. And you didn't have to make a list of, oh, here's what EFT does. EFT will help you with nail biting. EFT will help you with anxiety. EFT will help you with pain. You didn't do that, which is really nice. I'm really impressed by it, Donnie. Like, what you have shown is this, what is your story and how is that story leading you to having a mitigated life, ill health. And you've done it in a way that I think is really ingenious. Well done.
Thank you. Once I get to there, we're usually about halfway through the workshop. We're 30 minutes. It's all been talk and video and visualization. But what's cool is, one is there are people that are visual people. There are people that are hands-on. You know, some people have to hear, some people have to see, some people have to touch and do and experience. And so I've touched on a few of those, and that's when I go into the demonstration of EFT for the next 25 minutes. And I leave myself 5 minutes at the end of the presentation so I can do the sales pitch and ask for their business. But what I do that's a little bit different, and I'm not really sure how other practitioners do it, but instead of picking out at first one person of, oh, who's got physical pain or who's got emotional distress of some kind, I like to hit both in the first few rounds of tapping, where, you know, I might ask, like, you know, who notices that they have physical pain, a headache, backache, whatever it may be here today. And, you know, there's a few people that will raise their hands. And then I'll say, who notices that versus physical pain, that what manifests in their life is more emotional pain, emotional disturbances. And, you know, certain people raise their hands. And so what I'll do the first round is, you know, teach them is to obviously repeat after me the process and repeat what I'm saying, tap where I'm tapping. And I let both sides of the group, whether they have emotional pain or physical pain, know that the word pain we're going to use today is going to be for specifically for them. If they have emotional pain, when I say, even though I have this pain, that's going to mean emotional pain to the emotional people and physical pain to the people in physical pain. And I have them rate it on their scale from 0 to 10, and to find out where in their body they're noticing that sensation. That's when I'll tap. I'll do a few rounds, and then I have everybody check back in. And what I usually do is I will say, who noticed that they were at a number and now they're down closer to a 0 or a 1 or a 2, and inevitably, you know, 1 or 2 people raise their hands and say, I'm great, I feel perfectly fine now. And then I'll find someone in the group and I'll say, who may have noticed that they didn't, they were tapping for whatever their issue was, and they didn't notice any decrease at all in their symptoms, or maybe it was just a little bit. Those are the people that I'll go for next, where there's usually a few people that will raise their hand for that. And then with their permission, I will, without getting into deep issues, because I try not to get people very vulnerable in groups to where I'm like, tell me what your problem is. Oh, my wife left me. And like, I'm not trying to get people to get too personal in the group.
Right. And that's because you're not doing a healing workshop. You're doing a sales workshop for you. They're different.
Right. So I get people to do it in different ways. And something I've used is the movie technique a lot, where I will ask that person, you know, is it more of a physical pain, or is it something that's more of just a stressor in their life right now? And they might say, oh, it's a stressor. And that's when I'll say, okay, if this stressor, do you know what the situation is that feels like it's stressing you out? And usually most people will say, yeah. And I'll say, okay, if there was a title for this, what would it be? If it was a movie, what would you call this movie? You know, would it be, you know, The Boss That Drives Me Crazy, or whatever it might be? And they come up with a title. We tap on that. And I basically am doing the silent technique of EFT with them, where they're tapping in their mind on this issue. And I haven't found it yet where I can't get them to come down, even if it's just a few points, even if it's from a 6 to a 5, a 6 to a 4. You know, I can at least say to them, if they went from a 6 to a 4, where I can say, okay, you just let go of 33% of your distress from this situation in a few minutes.
Nice.
So it gets to prove to them that that works right away.
Right. And you can also say, when in your life did you get 30% better in a minute?
Yeah, I'll even say something sometimes where someone that has physical pain, where I might say, have you ever taken a Tylenol or an Advil that's worked that quick? 2 minutes.
Nice.
So that's my whole point. It's to get people to see that there are the people that can tap and woof, it's gone. And there's the people that are a little more stubborn to that they're not releasing it, that I can work with them a little bit. And then I also get them in touch with the sensation. Every time we're doing the tapping, we'll all notice what the sensation is now, where they say, oh, it's a gripping in my neck. And after they've lowered, I'll say, what is that sensation now? And they'll say, oh, it's more of a tingly feeling.
Mhm.
So I can then point out, do you see how the energy's moving? And then they can notice, wow, yeah, I can actually feel the difference in my neck now, or
Right.
whatever part of their body they're feeling.
Mhm.
Uh, that's usually by that point is usually at the point I'm pretty much done and ready to end.
Right.
Um, and I'll do a very short mindfulness sort of guided meditation just for a couple of minutes, just to get them to notice their feet on the ground, the support of the chair, um, you know, noticing their breathing, things like that, just to get everybody a little calm.
Okay.
Um, this is where then I will sell EFT and ask for everyone's business. One
Right.
thing I like to do is I let people know at the end of the workshop, because I have people sign in for the workshop,
Mhm.
um, is that I'm not going to be sending them any marketing things, but I will let them know if I'm doing another workshop because people seem to enjoy them. I will email you um, for the next upcoming workshop that I have coming up. If
Mhm.
you don't want to be on that list, just come up at the end of the workshop and put a star next to your email address, and I won't be emailing you.
Mhm.
Um, hold on, my phone is getting low, so I'm going to bring the charger over here to it.
Okay.
Second.
I'm just gonna say while you're doing that, it's I guess it's the marketer in me. I love the sort of laid back approach to that. Like, I'm not going to market anything to you, and because people do get really tired of being sold to and mail and marketed to all the time. I know, for me, like, I don't even look anymore. But I also think that there's a missed opportunity there, perhaps, that if you could take those names and start building an electronic email list on something like MailChimp, and there's many other products out there like that, that you might be able to, if you wanted to, turn a higher percentage of those people into clients over time. Because once people go home, if you're closing 20% of them, I'm thinking 50% of them want sessions, but perhaps they need to think about it. Perhaps they just are on the fence or whatever. But if they get one or two or three more emails from you or reminders from you over time that, you're having this thing that's a benefit to them, that it might actually improve your closing ratio even higher. Now, in your case, like you said, you're already full. You're not looking to get more clients. But the other side of that is, if all of us want to make a good living, and if you could raise your price from 100 to 125 or 100 to 150 because you do have so many people knocking down your door, that the service is still worth it. People are paying for it. Their lives are changing. It's worth it at whatever price you can charge. But if you had that one more level on your marketing, you might find that you could raise that price up a little bit higher and still have a really solid practice. Just a
I've
thought.
actually been thinking about that. I talked to Dawn about that yesterday a little bit, and that's a great idea. I mean, there's actually, you were talking about your was an old student that's charging 300, and I don't know, for those of you who have heard of Brad Yates online on YouTube, I've tapped with Brad Yates on YouTube a
Right.
lot, and
Everybody's heard of Brad.
he charges like 425 a session for EFT, and it's amazing. I'm obviously not at that level, but
Well,
you
you
know,
will
I,
be soon. I mean, with the income that you're making now, you can afford those sorts of things because I mean, the numbers are pretty clear here. In 1 year, you're looking at, between $50,000 and $75,000 a year. Like, that's a solid living for somebody who used to live on disability and make $700 a week. That's a solid, nice middle class life right there. And if you can raise that price from 100 an hour to 150 an hour, you can really, you're looking at a really nice life for yourself while doing good in the world. Um, so that's an impressive accomplishment. And at the end of the day, you're working 10 to 15 hours a week for that. That's pretty amazing. If you can work 10 to 15 hours a week, make a difference in people's lives in the world, and have a nice life for yourself, it's wonderful. I
Well,
love it.
it is, something that at the end of this workshop, and this is where I like to ask for people's business,
Right.
um,
Key.
is there are a few things that I do. And one is I let people know right away that there was so much I couldn't give them in today's workshop. This really was like such a sampling, and just such for what everybody got there today is nothing compared to what it's like to doing a clinical application of EFT with a professional like myself.
And I think you've done a nice job of differentiating the difference between just coming in and doing the basic recipe, or the general recipe as you're calling it, and seeing the benefits of it and having this little taste of it, than it is actually doing a session. So differentiating between those two things is I think a very powerful part of what you're doing.
Well, I let people know, as I say, how many of you have had dreams of starting your own business, sending your kids to college, buying the new car, being able to actually take a vacation out of country, go to Paris, whatever you're wanting to do in your lives, that you haven't been able to do. And it's all because, and I'll point at the chart, it's because of all of these things, and I'll point to that ring. It's all of these things that are stopping you from living the life that you want. And the way I work with people is when you first come see me, it's a minimum of 3 sessions to see me, because I wouldn't be doing you any justice, and I'd be stealing your money if I had you come and see me one time, because you just wouldn't get it.
Right.
So I have a 3-pack, and after you see me 3 times, you can purchase single sessions from me. But this is really an investment in yourself. You can't look at this as an expense, and you have to think of, in your own way, how you're like Sally in the hippocampus. And I'll say, if you're feeling inspired at all right now, it's human nature that if we don't take action right here and right now, we'll put it off. It's the same when we want to clean our house or do anything. We'll say, let me watch one more episode of TV. Let me scroll through my Facebook feed one more time. Let me call my best friend real quick and ask her about how her day was at work. And then 2 hours later, the house hasn't started getting cleaned, and it gets put off for another day. So if you're feeling inspired today, come up today and sign up. Don't wait if you feel inspired, because you'll leave and you'll forget about it. And you'll continue to live the same life that you're living now. And if you want a bigger, abundant life for not just you, but your family, come up afterwards and see me. And I let people know I have a sign-up sheet that'll be right next to my little booth where the cards are. And I'll say, if I'm getting bombarded by questions and you have to go right away, just write your name, your email address, or best way to reach you, your phone number, and I'll call you the following day, and we'll set up, figuring that out.
Good.
So I sell them right then and there.
Still get access.
What was
one
that?
other thing, so they still have access to you if they're embarrassed to talk to you, or they don't get an opportunity to talk to you, to still have a
Right.
follow-up, right? So
Right.
you can then follow up with an email and say, thanks for coming. If you have any more questions, here's how you can reach me. And you could even at that point, so one of the things that you might want to do now that you do have a full session, and you can say so authentically, is you could say that my client load is pretty full. I'm not taking a lot of new clients right now, but right now I have room for 10 clients, or I have room for 5 new clients. So the first 5 people to sign up, I can guarantee. Everybody else, you might have to go on a waiting list. And you might create something along those lines. Like, obviously, if you got 20 people in a room, you're not going to limit it to 5. But the thing about this is, you are just one person just doing 10 or 15 hours a week of work. So there's only so many clients you really can say. But if you have an authentic reason that they need to sign up now so that they can get access, put that out there, and they'll sign up really quickly.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point.
But I mean, you're at a place now where you're not even doing workshops. So,
Yeah, at least for the moment. Yeah.
Right,
Till I catch up on everything that's been, coming my way.
Right.
But this, I found, has been a solid thing. And at the end of every workshop, I have people come up asking me a lot of questions, telling me they love the presentation. how much more they understood even about their own bodies, how much things made sense that were happening in their life. Just those, before I even do the demo, like you were saying, the healing that people get where they go, that makes sense why I'm not sleeping. I'm always worried. Adrenaline's pumping through my body. How am I going to sleep when I've got adrenaline pumping through my body? How am I going to stay asleep?
The thing I really like about this, it really points out some of the weaknesses I've done in my own demonstrations. So I really appreciate this. I'm learning from it myself, because too often when I do my demonstrations, it's about what is EFT? How does it work? Like, here's the meridians and here's the points and here's why you would tap them and why. And I'm teaching them how to tap instead of teaching them what is EFT, what does it do for you, and how does it work? And by taking it from that, what is EFT and how does it work, into the realm of how can EFT change your life? And what are the real benefits of EFT, and putting it in such a way as that you can see the whole picture of the process of EFT instead of the tapping of EFT. And the process being session upon session upon session and focus. And you've just really done a nice job, Donnie, of showing them, the client, the potential client, how EFT changes their life. And that's really nicely done.
Well, thank you.
So, and then do you have people just pay you on the spot if they want to sign up for sessions?
Yeah, if they sign up for sessions, I'll have it. I try to do the same things that I'm doing right after a session when someone sees me, is I'll just say, book it.
Right.
Do you have your phone out? Let's do it right now.
Right.
This is my PayPal, send it to PayPal. I let them know also that I've got that 90-day, period where they can use this.
Mm-hmm.
And that's so they can make that decision too. So no one's mad at me later and say, oh, it's been 6 months. And I'm like, look, I told you why it had to be 3 months. And so they're agreeing to that right then and there, knowing that they have 3 months to use these. They can use them in 3 weeks, 3 days, whatever they are able to integrate and come and see me.
Mm-hmm.
But they really need to have it done within the 90 days to really get the benefits. And it also, the more they see me, the more of a bond that they're going to have. And chances are they're going to be bonding with me and sharing with me deeper, more intimate things than they are with their own spouses and best friends. And so I become then part of their survival network.
Yes, right. And so often in my own experience, once someone has been to see you 3 times and they've really felt the change in their own life, they almost need you. So what you said about them being part of your survival network, it's true. At that point, you become a sort of pseudo best friend and helper all at the same time. And so they will begin the process of booking with you over the long haul. So if you have 20 clients who are working with you regularly, that's really all you need to have a successful practice. 20, 25 clients, and boom, you can make a good living, and they're going to come back time and time again. And if you have 2, 3, 4, 5 drop off, do a workshop, bring in 5 more, and you've got a process that's going to see you through for a long time. Good. Is there anything else that you wanted to share?
Can you hear me okay?
I can now.
Okay. Something else that I let people know is what I actually specialize in.
Okay.
Besides the modalities, I will say the types of things like trauma, panic, and anxiety disorders, working with empaths, weight loss and things like that. And sometimes like going into a group where I might notice which one of those I might mention more, or give more emphasis on. If I notice that there's more people that are overweight in a room, I might mention that closer to the top of one of the things I specialize in over another, so that people can,
And someone who does have a specialization could take this presentation and adapt it to those purposes. So
for sure.
Would talk about weight loss, for example, and how your weight is related to, you can go down that target, your self-esteem is here, your whatever the different emotions are related to it can be put on that sort of thing, and it can be targeted to a specific audience.
Right.
Nice.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you wanted to share? I think this has
I,
been really helpful and really comprehensive.
I'm sure as soon as I get off of here, I'll think of 10 other things that I wanted to say and meant to say, but forgot. But that's a rough outline for the most part. There's a few little things I'll add or take away, and by reading the group sometimes where I realize like this would be better to say than this. But I just follow my intuition. But for the most part, I stick to kind of a script, and I stick to a timeline, and I keep it structured, and try not to just fly by the seat of my pants. In certain ways, I have some flexibility to do that, but I keep it roughly kind of the same level every workshop the same way.
Well, I think too, if you're someone who has experienced in the past a lot of anxiety with the idea of getting up in front of people, you're getting more and more confidence. But if you start going outside that script, it might trigger something in your own issues too. So by keeping it tight, you're fine.
Yeah. I mean, when you get to practice, yeah, like you said, when you're practicing the same thing over and over, it tends to neutralize that emotion. You know, there's a great story someone told me. I don't know who the climber's name was, but he free climbed some mountain or cliff that was like 3,000 feet tall. And what he would do is he would climb 125 feet at a time, and he'd climb back down, and he kept doing the same 125-foot section of this mountain until he became completely confident and the emotions of fear and doubt neutralized. Then he would move on to the next 125 feet until he completed the whole 3,000 foot. And so in a sense, that's what having a specific way that's doing it, that works for you, doing it over and over, it's becoming more of something that will build confidence, that will neutralize doubt. And then it starts becoming automatic, like clockwork, where you know exactly what you're going to say, where you're leading into next. And there's not this apprehension and as focused on as much of what the crowd's doing and how they're responding. You're focusing on what you need to say next and where you're going from here, you know. Right. So that helps.
Well, thank you so much for sharing this, for sharing this with us and giving other people what you've learned here so that they can go on and turn their practice into a successful practice. The thing that I always worry about so much in the course is that people learn the technique and they're good at it. When they leave, they're good at it. But then translating it into an actual business seems to be a real challenge for people. And I think that the guidance you have given today to help people do that is really great. And I think it's going to help a lot of people to be able to go out and turn that training into a really successful practice. So I really appreciate you taking the time and being willing to share this with people. And I love watching your success. It's just so fulfilling for me as a teacher to see the student fly. I love it.
Yeah.
So, okay. All right. Well, I will talk to you soon, and we will get this out to people through the mentorship program and help people become really great EFT practitioners like you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Deborah.
Okay.
Have a good day. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye.